If you follow me on Twitter, you know I promised 2 uploads today, and we will be getting that. Bet you can guess what the other upload's going to be later. But before Monday Night Football, we've got Mock Draft Monday. Order is based on the current standings. Things will change. And also, I've added a 32nd pick, which is the first pick of the second round. The Dolphins had their own first-round pick forfeited this year. And I suppose we'll get right into it. Texans are the new #1 overall team because they are the worst in the league right now. Have them going quarterback Bryce Young. I just think he's the QB1 in the class right now. He's able to make plays when the play breaks down. He's incredible under pressure, and there really isn't a lot of help for him at Bama right now, which seems absurd to say with how well they recruit, how great they are every year. But you look at the receivers, you look at the offensive line. Bryce Young has been exceptional this year, all things considered, and I think he will be the first player off the board in general. Number 2, have the Raiders going Will Anderson Jr. I think this could be a quarterback. I really do. However, with Will Anderson on the board, I think he will be the #1 player on a lot of teams' boards. Maybe Jalen Carter in there as well. Maybe some teams like Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. But Will Anderson's going to be up there. And for the Raiders that are dead last in the NFL in sacks and pressures, they could certainly use some pass rush help. Will Anderson Jr. is a really good way to do that at number 2 overall. And I know Derek Carr and Mark Davis have this special connection. So not sure they're going to replace him just yet. Although they could. And number 3, Panthers going CJ Stroud. Panthers could use a quarterback. They've been in that boat for a while. New head coach is going to come in, probably going to want to take his guy if CJ Stroud's #1 on his board or in that range. CJ Stroud at 3, not terrible for the Panthers. He's got pretty good arm, good accuracy when there's time to make those throws. And then at 4, have the Eagles going Jalen Carter, interior defensive lineman out of Georgia. Great pass rusher on the interior, and they're just getting a little bit older. And we know Howie Roseman loves to take interior defensive linemen, and one that can actually rush the passer, I think, is going to be highly coveted by the Eagles, and I think this is your Fletcher Cox replacement. Jalen Carter to the Eagles at 4. At number 5, have the Jags going Olu Fashanu out of Penn State. He's played really, really well this year. He's only 19 years old, so it's not only like sky-high potential for a player like this, but he's also just very good right now, and maybe a top 5 or 10 player in this draft. Probably your future left tackle. Cam Robinson's too up and down. I know he's under contract, but I think Fashanu is going to be the future. Jawan Taylor has graded out fairly well, but I haven't really seen him too much this year. So with PFF, you got to take things with a grain of salt, especially on the offensive line. But I still think they could address tackle with this number 5 pick. At number 6, Bears. Same ideal. We're going Peter Skoronski from Northwestern. Really, really good tackle prospect, except for the fact that he has short arms, even shorter than Rashawn Slater, but he came in, another Northwestern tackle with short arms, and dominated in the NFL. Skoronski could be looking to do the same thing, or you could potentially slide him into guard where he would profile really, really well as well. So I think Bears just upgrade the offensive line here. It's the right thing to do if you're Chicago. Could be a pass rusher too, like this next guy off the board, Miles Murphy out of Clemson to the Seattle Seahawks. Could definitely use some pass rush help as well, especially someone that has some inside-outside flexibility that can move across to the defensive line. Big dude, great athlete. Clemson's got some pretty good defensive players in this draft, as they always seem to. And then at 8, I have the Lions going Kelee Ringo. It could just be time for a cornerback upgrade. You can never have too many good corners, especially with the personnel that we're seeing teams throw out on both sides of the ball. More receivers come out onto the field. You need more DBs to cover them. And even though Jeff Okudah has taken a massive step up this year, despite the DB coach getting fired, guys like Amani Oruwariye have kind of taken a step back, and some other DBs really haven't played as well as you might want them to. So Kelee Ringo seems like a natural fit here at number 8. Really athletic, prototypical size corner out of Georgia. Texans back on the clock. We're going Brian Brzee. If Miles Murphy was on the board still, this could be who I would take for them. But just another really good interior defensive lineman who can actually rush the passer. There are some concerns with him, some injuries, some things like that. But he is actually quite good when he plays. And I still think he's going to end up being a top 10 or top 15 pick in this draft. Probably not going to fall outside the top 20. So getting a player like him at number 9, despite, I saw, I think, a comment or two that's maybe ingrained in my head. Not huge fans of Brian Brzee. He was a former top recruit that has played very, very well when he's on the field. So a team's going to like that. I think he will end up going pretty high. The Texans have to be the team right here at number 9. Number 10, had the Steelers going Paris Johnson Jr., tackle out of Ohio State. they could just use help on the offensive line, and Paris Johnson Jr. has really handled the transition to left tackle this year at a very high level. Really good player. At 11, again, you need more pass rush. I'm going defensive end Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech to the Lions. Yeah, you went Aiden Hutchinson at number 2, got Josh Paschal. There are some other pass rushers in the mix. But with Tyree Wilson, I've made this comparison a lot, and I'm not saying it, pound for pound, this is exactly who this reminds me of. But in the way of being a really big dude with long arms, with pass rush potential, even though he's shown a lot of it at Texas Tech, think Trayvon Walker. The reason he went at number 1 last year is the athletic profile and the arm length. And Tyree Wilson checks off some of those boxes as well. Probably not the same mover in space, but checks off some of those same boxes. I think he's going to end up being a high pick. And again, get more pass rushers in Detroit. Tyree Wilson is maybe the player that you would have taken had Aiden Hutchinson been off the board for the Lions. So number 12, Falcons going Christian Gonzalez, corner out of Oregon. Kind of the same thing with Tyree Wilson. Just good athlete, really long arms, important for the position. And teams are going to fall in love with that athletic profile. And he's also really good, really fluid mover, clean hips. Christian Gonzalez is a good player. I think he's going to end up going a lot higher than people think. So for the Falcons, that could certainly use another corner, even though they just traded for one, still could use one. Christian Gonzalez makes a lot of sense for the future. And that's not to act like I forgot AJ Terrell exists again. Can never have too many corners. Number 13, we have a team that certainly could use some more, and that is the Arizona Cardinals. Got Joey Porter Jr., of course, son of former, I'm sure he was a Pro Bowler, Joey Porter for the Steelers, Dolphins. Even played for the Cardinals for a minute as well, now that I think about it. So this kind of fun in a way. But yeah, the Cardinals need help at corner. Joey Porter Jr., another corner with pretty good size for the position, a little grabby. But we saw J.C. Horn go top 10 with some of the same issues, so I don't think it's going to affect the draft stock of Joey Porter Jr. at all. At number 14, one of my favorite receiver to team fits in this entire draft, or even player to team rather than just receiver to team, it's Quentin Johnston out of TCU. He's an incredible player, has been dinged up a little bit in recent weeks, came back for the Texas game, which I unfortunately saw live, and he was pretty good in that game, although unspectacular. It was super cold, very tough for both offenses to move the ball, but he's the real deal. He's got great size, great athleticism, can run routes at all levels of the field. He is a very good receiver prospect. Wouldn't shock me to see him go higher than this. And the Packers finally could look to take a receiver and address that position inside the first round. This is the draft to do it. If you're going to be drafting high, you could get your pick of whoever you want, whether it's Kayshon Boutte, who I don't have going in the first round, but I still think it'd be a first-round receiver, or Jordan Addison, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Josh Downs, if you're looking for a deep threat, who I also don't have going in the first round. There are a number of really good receiver prospects in this draft. It's going to be interesting to see where they all end up going. At 15, I believe this is the furthest down that I've had Will Levis going in this draft in my previous mock drafts. But Will Levis, he's got, the same things we talk about. It's the traitsy guy. The guy who's got the size, he's got the arm, he's got the toughness, but doesn't really necessarily have the supporting cast that is going to make him put up these unbelievable numbers. If Will Levis was at Oregon right now, like Bo Nix was, everyone's hyping up Bo Nix right now, Will Levis would be getting the same exact hype. So, or even more. So everything is situation dependent. Got to be able to play well in the SEC, but you also have to factor in the supporting cast as well. And the Commanders, that quarterback situation is weird right now. Don't think Carson Wentz is the guy. Don't think Taylor Heineke's the guy. And I don't know that Sam Howell's the guy. So it's a developmental quarterback. I know you're going to say, we got 3 quarterbacks, but do you? Is Heineke going to make the team next year? Or do you really want Carson Wentz starting for the foreseeable future? I know they traded picks for him, but if you're here at 15 and you have a high upside QB at this spot, I think they might consider it, and that's why I have Will Levis going here at 15. Before, the Colts maybe could have picked him at 16. Instead, we're going left tackle, Broderick Jones. Another one of these guys that's handled the transition to full-time starter at left tackle really, really well. He's a good player, and I think the Colts could desperately use an upgrade at left tackle. I think this is your guy. And in this draft, I've taken some liberties. I've moved some players at traditionally less valuable positions up the board a little bit so we can show them a little bit of love as well. And that's why I have the Chargers going tight end Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame. He's huge at the position. Doesn't block quite as well as you would expect, given his size at like 260 pounds, but is a big-time receiving threat. One of the best receiving tight ends we've seen in the draft in recent years. Michael Mayer is legit, and that's not to discount Kyle Pitts because they're different players. But Michael Mayer, very, very good tight end prospect. I didn't say the best, but one of. He is very, very good and probably will end up being a first-round pick. This just kind of bolsters the Chargers' offensive attack. Gerald Everett is good when he's on the field. Again, a very different player from Michael Mayer, but you can't really count on him, unfortunately. I think Michael Mayer is someone that you can actually build a connection with on offense for Justin Herbert. 18, have the Bengals going O'Cyrus Torrence out of Florida. He was a Louisiana transfer, came to Florida with Billy Napier when he took the Florida job. And he's been really, really good. And for the Bengals, I think you could look to upgrade a ton of positions on that offensive line. Could be tackle, could be center, could be guard. And in this case, we are going to go with the guard. O'Cyrus Torrence has been really, really good for the Gators. Maybe the best interior offensive line prospect in this draft. And the Bengals could just use help across that offensive line. This is maybe just the best player available. And we see guards go in this range in the draft too. And he is a good prospect. At 19, have the Bucs going Bijan Robinson. The Bucs are a weird team. They've got a lot of strengths across the entire team, some weaknesses too, but I think at this point the value for Bijan just becomes pretty good. I know it's a running back. Bijan Robinson is ridiculous. You can point to the TCU game and say, hey, he had 29 yards or whatever it was, when there are a lot more variables than that. He's been incredible. He's the best running back prospect in this draft, and there are some good ones as well. But as far as a pure running back goes, it's Bijan Robinson. He's a great receiver out of the backfield as well. I think he'd be really fun in this Bucs offense and would actually afford them the opportunity to run the ball a little bit more. I like Rachaad White, kind of over playoff Lenny at this point. So Bijan Robinson at 19, I do think he's going to end up being a first-round pick. He's just too good of a player, too good of a prospect, even if it's at a less valuable position. Just like Michael Mayer, I think they will end up being first-round picks. And then at number 20, have the Broncos going DeJuan Jones out of Ohio State. Larger-than-life tackle here for the Buckeyes at right tackle. And the Broncos seem to be a team that always needs to upgrade at right tackle. Sometimes it's left tackle. Garrett Bowles, I think, pretty much solidified that position despite being injured this year. But they need a right tackle badly. And DeJuan Jones could be the guy at 20. At number 21, I have the New England Patriots going Jordan Addison out of USC. He is a great route runner. And if you want to give Mac Jones a chance to develop, give him some weapons. Jordan Addison checks off that box. He can win on the outside. I think he can play in the slot as well, of course. He's a really good receiver prospect, maybe the best overall route runner in this class. At 22, have the Seahawks going Trenton Simpson. I think in my last mock draft, I had the Seahawks taking him at like 10 or somewhere around 10. And here he's available at 22. Figure why not get a good off-ball linebacker that can move around the field, good in coverage, explosive blitzer when he does that as well. Really fun player, really fun prospect. One of these versatile linebackers that we've been seeing in recent drafts. At 23, have the Jets going Jalen Duncan. They need tackle as well. In the same boat of a Broncos or a New York Jets. These teams have just not really been able to solidify both sides of the line. And with the Jets especially so. Mekhi Becton consistently injured. George Fant on the other side and some other guys rotating in. Dwayne Brown as well recently. Dwayne Brown's like 38 or we're close to it. Maybe he's 36. I think he's like 38 though. He's old. You cannot rely on Dwayne Brown. Jalen Duncan plays tackle. I think that's the entire selling point with Jalen Duncan right now to the Jets. They just really, really need to upgrade that position. And their teams played very well this year, especially that defense. Although I thought about Brian Branch at this spot, or maybe even Antonio Johnson. He seems like he would be a really good fit for the Jets, given their draft history under Joe Douglas. At 24, have the Buffalo Bills going Jahmyr Gibbs, running back out of Alabama. This one ends up being a little bit weird to me because they drafted James Cook to be the receiving back in round 2 last year. They just traded for Nyheim Hines because they wanted a better receiving back right now. But Jahmyr Gibbs offers you the complete package at running back. One, he is a very good runner. Very, very fast, very explosive. He's an exceptional pass blocker, and he is the best receiving back in this class, in my opinion. So Jahmyr Gibbs just seems like a perfect fit for Buffalo. I don't know where that leaves Nyheim Hines and James Cook. If I said Dalvin Cook earlier, I was mistaken, but James Cook is his name, Dalvin Cook's brother. But yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs, just too good to pass up on at this spot, despite, yes, playing running back, but he is the complete package, and I think worthy of the selection for sure. As we move on to the Baltimore Ravens at 25, have them going receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba from Ohio State. Smith-Njigba has been injured this year, but is certainly a very, very good receiver, was highly productive a season ago, and that's in the same offense with Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, who were both first-round picks in this past draft. The Saints even moved up to get Olave, and I think Garrett Wilson was number 10 overall, certainly a top 10 pick, if I recall. I think he was number 10. Smith-Njigba, I don't think is on the same level as Garrett Wilson as a prospect, despite outproducing him. However, I think Jackson Smith-Njigba is quite good. I think he's going to end up being a slot receiver, and I think that could end up being a pretty good fit here for the Ravens with Rashad Bateman on the outside, Mark Andrews as an awesome option. Jackson Smith-Njigba just could be a good fit for this team that I'm not convinced is going to take a receiver high just because it's not really their offense, but can never have too many good receivers. So Smith-Njigba feels like a pretty good fit. Tennessee, number 26, have them going Darnell Washington. Yeah, he's a tight end, and they could use a tackle, but we've seen a lot of tackles fly off the board in this particular mock draft. Darnell Washington is larger than life. Google his measurements. He's like 6'7", 6'8", 260, 270 in that range, but moves really, really well. He is a freak athlete and would be a super fun addition to this Tennessee offense. You know, hey, you want to tackle? He's almost tackle size. So kind of fun, but yeah, really good receiver. He's just a huge mismatch and weapon for any offense. He's not Kyle Pitts, so don't think that, but he is still a huge mismatch for a lot of different teams and a lot of different positions and players, I should say. Really, really fun. I am interested to see how high he ends up going in the draft. Could be higher than this. Could be a lot higher than this. At 27, have the Cowboys going defensive back Brian Branch. Think kind of free safety, slot corner, can play that nickel spot, move around the field, maybe even play the boundary in some instances. I would say think Dax Hill in a way to where slot corner can play deep. Brian Branch to me is a very good prospect. And the Cowboys could just use another really good DB. Certainly a boundary corner, but that really isn't addressed with this pick. And then number 28, we are going with a boundary corner. It's my favorite team, the Giants, going Cam Smith, corner out of South Carolina. Another player I wouldn't be surprised if he went higher than this in the draft. Really, really good corner prospect. I like him a lot as a player. And when he ended up being available here for the Giants that desperately need boundary corner at 28, I jumped at the opportunity. And the final stretch here, including the first pick of the second round with the Texans at 32. We're going to start with the Vikings at 29, have them going Clark Phillips III out of Utah. Really good player, a little bit undersized, but I still could see him sneaking into the first round. But this is certainly not a lock. He's just small. He's a small corner, but a very, very good corner. We've seen smaller corners get drafted high and also have been successful. Jason Verrett, when healthy, he's only about 5'10". So that's an example. I know he just got injured again. Feel devastated for him, but he was really, really good when he was on the field. And Clark Phillips is a player, despite being a little bit smaller. At 30, one of the risers of this year, it's Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa. Showing some love to the Iowa guys. They've got a good defense. He doesn't even necessarily start, but it's evident when he's on the field how explosive and how much of a difference maker he is. I believe he leads Iowa in sacks and tackles for loss and pressures, despite not being an every down player for them. So here, back into the first round, I think it makes sense for a team like the Chiefs, who could be looking to add another presence on the edge. Took George Karlaftis in the first last year. Lucas Van Ness seems like a really good fit for them as well, and that can leave Chris Jones, who's one of the best defensive players in the league, really being more of a traditional defensive tackle where he excels greatly. And I know they like to move him to the outside sometimes. He's just not that guy. He's not that guy, despite being good enough to get it done in certain instances. At 31, last pick of the first round here, remember the Dolphins had their first round pick forfeited. The one that they got from the 49ers via trade went to the Broncos in the Bradley Chubb deal. So we have the Eagles going with B.J. Ojulari, edge rusher out of LSU. I'm trying to figure out why I mentioned... Oh, yes, only 31 picks. I'm like, why did I mention the Dolphins? I know it happened moments ago. I couldn't remember. I'm like, this is the Eagles' actual pick. But yes, 31 picks. This is the Eagles winning the Super Bowl in this world. And B.J. Ojulari, I would say this could have been Nolan Smith, but he got injured. pretty serious injury. BJ Ojulari was someone who had first-round buzz coming into the year, has played well, a little bit light for the position, right? But is someone that could offer some serious pass rush juice for the Eagles at 31. And then first pick of the second round, number 32 this year, because of that forfeit, got Antonio Johnson, also staying in state. I love to do that with the Texans. Give them players in state. I think I had Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech going to the Texans in a few mocks ago, I want to say, even though I had Brian Brzee this time around. But yeah, Antonio Johnson, versatile DB, kind of like Brian Branch in a way, but almost more linebacker, whereas Brian Branch is more corner safety. Antonio Johnson's more like safety linebacker, but moves well in space as well, especially in that nickel role. So a little bit of corner to his game as well. But yeah, just a really good player. I think he will end up being certainly a top 40 pick, and it just kind of makes sense for the Texans here that can use another big-time player on defense. Jalen Petrie has played well, has had some tackling issues, been kind of up and down, but has played well overall for a rookie. Antonio Johnson's just another really good, versatile DB. And I think with them liking Jalen Petrie, they're definitely going to like Antonio Johnson. So that is my mock draft here. Giants franchise later, goes without saying. But hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed already. Make sure you are. And more mock drafts to come as we get further into draft season. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.